Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Nashville Forward. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm your host for Nashville Forward, a community affairs-based program brought to you by Cumulus Media. We like to bring the business community into our studios here at Music Row and talk to them a little bit about what they do and how they join together with the city of Nashville to make Nashville a better place to work, a better place to live. And we're pleased to be joined today by Jason Demuth, who is the state president of PulteGroup, and we're going to find out all about what Jason does and what PulteGroup's bringing to the state of Tennessee. Jason, thanks for being on.
Happy to be here.
Talk to us about PulteGroup. What do you guys do?
So PulteGroup is the third biggest home builder in the country. It's really one of the biggest home building companies in the world. And we've got 32 divisions. The company's been around for 75 years. It's one of the oldest home building companies in America. And within that, we operate 6 brands, Pulte Homes, Centex, and Del Webb being probably the most known brand within Pulte. And so what's different about, I'd say, Pulte than other home builders, if there was something to remember, is that we cater to a really wide demographic. We've got Centex brand that targets affordable home buyers. We have our Pulte brand that targets move-up home buyers, and we have our Del Webb brand that targets active adult or retirees. Mm-hmm. And then the couple of the other brands are a little more regional specific. We've got John Wieland here, which is more of a boutique kind of high-end brand. And so we look at every market that we're in a little bit more organically than some of our counterparts. We look at it as, what are the opportunities? What kind of communities can we be providing specifically to a market, what kind of homes, and then we craft that uniquely to that region. So our Nashville division doesn't look just like our Charlotte division or our Atlanta division, for that matter.
Right. I was looking into some of the history of PulteGroup, and I mean, it really is an example of the American dream, right?
Yes.
If I remembering this correctly, William Pulte, just when he was a young man,
and it's
like 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Started building houses, constructed some really great homes. People loved it, grew the company, and here before you know it, you're the third largest home builder in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's an incredible story.
It is.
So how did you become a part of the company?
I joined. So I've been in real estate development for 20 years. I came out of college doing it kind of on accident. I grew up in Reno, and I grew up at the base of a ski resort. And I thought I'd figure out what I was going to do with my life in college, and didn't. And so when it came to getting a job, I went to work for a ski company because that was what I loved to do and was what I knew. That was in the early aughts, and so everything was about real estate development at the time. And so I found myself working for the resort development arm. So we were building and launching ski resort villages in Tahoe and in the Rockies. And it was the company I worked for, Interest at the time, was one of the biggest resort companies in the world. So we were all over the place. And I got to travel all over the West Coast, launching ski resort villages, which was pretty surreal, being right out of college doing something like that.
Imagine.
And found my way from there to Las Vegas, working in the high-rise business. And kind of survived the crash down there, kind of asset managing some of the high-rise buildings that were had been built and had to be kind of relaunched to new buyers during that crash. And around that time,
was that the not to interrupt you?
No.
Was that the? I don't know what it was called. It was like the city center or something like that.
That was part of all of that.
A pretty high-profile example.
It was an interesting time, not to get on too much of a tangent there, but it's definitely interesting. When real estate was so hot, and particularly in Las Vegas, a lot of the casinos launched their own like condo towers, which was a new model for them. But they looked at it as a way to add more hotel visitors on someone else's dollars. There's somebody who's buying a condo and then basically renting it to a visitor, and it's just pumping more people into the casino. So it was the best thing ever, but everybody did it. So then, market turns and there was a lot of inventory then to resell. And some of the casinos just ended up turning them into suite towers of their own, and some of them they still try to sell.
So I'm very curious about the market in the Southwest region, and how that's turned around. Has it
A
turned
lot,
around?
yeah. Vegas boomed for a long time. It took a while,
Right.
but it's been booming for about 10 years.
I would think, and this is kind of this is completely off the rails from what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Nashville,
Yep.
but I'm just uh, in that region of the world, combined with some of the real estate things that were going on, like 2009, 2008, 9, 10. You had an advance of gambling across the country,
Yeah.
which kind of spread dollars across the country. And
Yep.
Vegas is still the it city to go
Yep.
to when you consider that type of entertainment activity. But it's not the only place to
Correct.
go to. In addition with Atlantic City, so it just kind of changes. I would think their dynamic about how they approach this sorts of things.
Vegas has always said that they look at it of other places that can gamble, either table betting or sports betting, not really as competition, but as almost growing the interest of those activities in general. So they're basically gaining more gamblers,
Helping their brand,
and then
yeah,
they're still going to come to Vegas
because it's
that's
the pinnacle,
Mecca.
right?
So
right.
it's almost they look at it as like a benefit, not a detractor.
Right, right.
So
So, when did you get to Tennessee?
so going back to the transition to Pulte. So when I was working on the Strip in a high rise, the division president in Vegas of PulteGroup, that business had crashed so hard that it had actually been absorbed by Southern California division, and he was when the market had recovered, charged with building that business back up. It used to be one of the biggest home building divisions of Pulte in the company, and so he recruited me to come join the team to help in that cause. I had missed launching things, even though it was a business different from what I knew. Because we do master plans and what we call placemaking, creating new communities and a lifestyle and experience. It resonated with me, and so I joined that team, and we built back up that division from 15 until 22, where the opportunity came for me to come out to Nashville and take over my own division. Which is how I found my way here.
So before we get to the Nashville side of things, even before we get to Pulte, what was that world like, and how did the companies that were successful in managing those times manage?
Survivor.
Because it was really, I don't know that maybe the average viewer recognizes how close we were to. I understand that it was classically a recession,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of dangers, a lot of factors going into that. But the
Yep.
reality was that, if you're in the real estate business, you had to survive at that point. How did those that succeeded coming out of that do it?
Not every market was the same. The Vegas market specifically was one of the worst in terms of being overbuilt for inventory. And so, it's a classic question. You've got more supply than demand. How do you still build houses? Like, how do you still, how do you create more demand or more supply and with the less demand? And so you had to be very good at understanding what people were missing. So there was a lot of product innovation during those times because you were basically saying you're going to pay a premium for this new house because anything new generally costs more than something that is existing in our business. And so you had to innovate. And it's the same reason that somebody buys a new iPhone, even if they already have an iPhone, is there's features that you're providing that they don't have. And that was more or less in a market like that, how you survived and that just over time that became the new demand of, like that. And then eventually, and kind of more of the state we're in now is the industry in general was so suppressed during those times that now we're almost in the other scenario where we don't have enough homes for the demand. And that might fluctuate. Markets softened recently with high costs and interest rates and some of the economic uncertainties that are out there. But in general, I still think that we're undersupplied millions of homes nationally still from that crash that had happened. And so that's kind of where we're at now.
So do you feel like your experience in Las Vegas I mean, I would think that it would well prepare you for what's going on in and around Nashville. When
There's
you
nothing that scares me anymore.
well, I bet when you were approached about Tennessee, how much did you know
Not
about the
much.
state?
It was funny. It was a great story, actually. The this is definitely perceived as a market on the rise, and obviously there's been a lot of change here in the last 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, right?
Hmm.
And so, and I've always followed the projects, like what I would be working on, more so than having a specific, like, I'm going to go to this place next. There's places I know I didn't want to be. But when this opportunity came up to be the division president here, um, it's a complex market. It's a harder market to build houses than others. Like you can just, it's much more difficult to build a house and to develop a community here than Texas or the Southwest.
Hmm.
But it definitely was a market that intrigued me, that that had a buzz about it, and it seemed like the lifestyle was what I wanted, and so I looked into the numbers, the economy and the business that we had here that was kind of burgeoning, and I'm like, that sounds like a good move for me, and it was funny because as I started when we made the decision to move and I started telling people like I'm moving to Nashville to take this position, everybody said everyone's moving to Nashville. It was the funniest thing. And I've
Hmm.
talked to other people since then who have similar stories from the West Coast of, hey, I'm moving to Nashville. Everyone's moving to Nashville. So as you can imagine, if you build homes for a living, that's something you want to hear people say.
100%. Well, and I think the statistic when I got here, and you and I got here pretty much at the same time, 21, 22, I
Yeah.
guess, 100 people a day.
Yep.
Which, when you first hear that, you're like, okay, sure, 100 people a day, but then you start doing the math, and you're talking about, 35 to 38,000 people a
Yep.
year. That's a lot of people
Yep.
coming into a community looking for places to live.
Yep.
And that's going to put, its own set of burdens on, transportation and infrastructure and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And that's what you guys are here for,
Yep.
in part,
Yep.
is to help ease those burdens.
Yep.
So, what were your initial when you got here? I mean, from a building thought process, but just generally speaking, what do you think?
Um, we so as I had said previously, one of our brands is Del Webb. I was I was lucky enough to be part of a committee that our company formed a few years ago to study that brand and study. We used to own that space. We invented the space of active adult living, so
Hmm.
55 plus
Hmm.
living, facilitated resort style amenity, but a home you own. And over the last 50 years, that 55 plus category has grown, and even though we've grown, it grew bigger than faster. I mean, it exceeded what most people thought it could be.
Hmm.
And so we were looking for, let's look around to some of the best practices internally and externally, to kind of reshape that brand. And part of that study revealed that Nashville had much more opportunity for that. There were snowbirds that come here. There's a lot of people want to age in place here. A lot of people moving here. And so we had recently acquired positions to launch two more of those here. And so that's been probably my highest duty in the last few years
Hmm.
being here, was to open those master plans, which one opened last year, the other one opened this year. Um, and so that along with, then we do operate four brands here, so Pulte, John Whelan, Centex, and Del Webb. So we kind of cover all the categories. Um, that was in place, so that was a good start. We
Hmm.
weren't obviously, for my role, starting from scratch. I did. It's interesting how much more complicated it is here. This is a market that's a little more difficult. It's a little more fragmented than some. There's
Hmm.
there's a lot of utility companies. There's a lot of municipalities, and the rules are evolving, that you need to kind of cater to as the city's growing and becoming more sophisticated. And so it's been a fun challenge trying to navigate that with all of the business that we're bringing to the market at the time.
Is part of the challenge for you? It occurs to me that when you come into a community, they're probably, particularly in suburban communities, that
Mostly,
there's
yeah.
some maybe misunderstanding of what you're trying to accomplish, and
Yep.
you know, and and maybe even a bit of pushback from the folks who have been there for a long time.
Yep.
And I would think that part of your role or the role of the public relations wing of the company is to come in and say, hey, we just want to make sure you guys understand what we're bringing to the community, the benefit, because that could get lost in some of the discussions, I would think.
Yeah, the what they call the NIMBY, the not in my backyard,
Right.
environment. It's pretty widespread across the country. There's again,
Nobody likes change.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. So definitely when you're bringing a new community to an area, there is an education process, and typically the municipalities are looking for some improvements. A lot of times we'll build parks. A lot of times we'll dedicate money for schools or fire, or safety.
Yeah, because your
emergency
goal is to
services.
ingratiate yourself within the. I mean, you want to be a part of the broader community.
Yeah, and if you're growing the population of an area, there are there's services that need to be provided, and so a lot of times we're widening roads or improving roads. So I mean, truly, a lot of the improvements that you see in the infrastructure around you is being done by developers because they're being required to do it to bring more homes to an area. So that is the benefit, absolutely.
It occurs to me, Jason, as we talk, you are a perfect person to ask this question because I've thought about this for a while. COVID comes along, and I mean, I guess it's just human nature that we focused inwardly, and that created a dynamic by which people wanted to improve their living situation either through, building on or moving into a better situation. That created a dynamic that ultimately was a little bit of a boom for the building community, was it not? I mean, did I read it right?
So kind of, I guess, going back to what we were talking about earlier about innovation, right? There was definitely some dynamics that came into play during COVID. It was like a reshuffling, absolutely, of how people wanted to live, I guess it was dynamic. I mean,
it was crazy and insane, and there were a
Yeah.
lot of factors
Well,
going on.
companies
but-
kind of changed the way they operated,
Right.
which changed the way people could live. So suddenly you could live in Bozeman, Montana, but be a tech CEO, or where I grew up, the Bay Area there's a lot of tech in the Bay Area. A lot of people moved up to Tahoe or Reno because they could live there and work remote, but have a lower cost of living or like lower taxes or a bigger house, or a house, because in some cases you can't even have that.
Right.
So yeah, it hit us in many ways. The features we offered in homes, adding offices, adding space, indoor outdoor living, even some of the features like bacteria resistant countertops. There was a lot of ways that
Wait, there are bacteria-resistant countertops?
materials, that have been rolled out. So
I'm such an old man when it comes to some of this stuff. I was like, what?
the technology,
Right.
a lot of people working from home, more emphasis on Wi-Fi and smart homes.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of innovation that way, and then there was a lot of geographic mobility that came from it, of people deciding where they wanted to be. And there was probably a psychological factor of some people who might have been like, YOLO, like I've always wanted to do this thing, and then they
Right.
might move somewhere. So it was definitely a dynamic time.
Would you say that? I mean, we've gotten kind of beyond that. I mean, that period in time was odd because I would suggest. I mean, beyond the obvious. I mean, the pandemic and the tragedy of people losing lives and all of that. I mean, obviously that set aside. From a business perspective, it was interesting to me to watch that there were some industry models that did better. I mean, some were devastated. I talked to a buddy of mine that owns golf courses, and he said we would never have wished it on anyone, but the fact of the matter is golf courses did better.
I believe that.
During the COVID pandemic. Would you say the housing industry saw an increase in interest? I mean, and has that continued to 2025?
It did. I mean, it's really obvious that it did. When you look at it was a boom. I mean, really,
Yeah,
really,
right,
it was a boom. And it was complicated because supply chains got more difficult, so costs ran up, and so that's a lot of the inflation we saw in housing. But again, it's interesting because it's really kind of region specific. Like even though it seemed like the whole country kind of boomed during that
Mhm.
time, there was a lot of flight to certain places, like Nashville being an example,
Mhm.
that benefited the most
Mhm.
from it in terms of real estate demand, call it. That's definitely coming back down to earth now. Of just and I think again because that geographic shuffling
Mhm.
kind of happened, so it was a moment in time. And so it's definitely like a lot of times in our business now we're saying, well, let's look at 2018, 2019 a little better as a comp of like the way, you know, cost should be, the cycle times of it takes to how long it takes us to build a house. Um, the amount of sales in a month that you could expect in a community. It's like we're looking back kind of before COVID as that would be the norm that we're trying to get back to. If that makes sense.
So, I mean, that leads us to discussions about how in the world communities like on the size and the scale that you guys do get built, because I wouldn't begin to understand the process, but I assume that it starts with figuring out where there's a need.
Correct.
And then you kind of go from there to see. I mean, well, you walk me through it. I mean, you let's say we have discovered that there's a need in a community somewhere in Middle Tennessee.
Yep.
What's the next step in the process?
The next step is definitely going to be the availability of the land first and foremost,
Right.
and then the services. So, is there a cost-effective way of providing sewer, gas, water to a community that then we can develop and build houses and sell homes to people for a price they could pay or would pay for in that location? So that's probably the most complicated upfront step is just does it even work? And then it's then it's a question of will you be able to entitle it? Will the municipalities allow the density may be required? So obviously, if you have a higher cost to run a sewer to a community or water, the more homes that you could run it to helps because then you're knocking down that cost by the number of homes. So you might have a density in mind of what makes something work, but then you go to the planning department and they say no, and those are kind of specific to the location opportunity and traffic patterns and all kinds of other things. So so that's like the major first hurdle. I'd say that's probably the main first hurdle that every builder, every developer has to deal with. And then from there, once let's say those align, you got a way to provide the services, you can get to the density that makes it all work. What in general the easiest part generally is what somebody's going to pay for the home. So you're kind of always working backwards from there.
Right.
And then it's
And
just
does that inform you as to like what the community would look like in terms of size of home?
Completely. And
Right,
there's a little bit of variability to it. So if you amenitize a community, you're providing more value, and so like adding a pool or parks and things,
sure.
but you're adding cost. So it's like you got to
It's a
determine
balance.
there's a balance to it. And so the next step that is also complicated then is your grading plan, how we've got a lot of rain here, so you have to know where the water's going, how you're shedding water from the site, and that's something that we typically are improving when we're developing. We're building detention basins or things that are retaining the water, usually a lot of times neutral or better than they were before.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be building a community that's going to be flooding, for example, right?
Right.
So you're building out of floodplains and stuff. And so there's a pretty extensive engineering process that goes into how that all comes together and works.
I mean, is it a big day when they come in Jason's office and say, "Hey, we've got all the tests done, and this site is good. We can move forward."
Every step is a big day.
Right. Sure.
Getting your pro forma approved for millions of dollars to develop a community is a big day. Getting the approval of your density and with the municipality is a big day. Getting your CDs approved, where the utilities and the municipalities agree to all of your construction drawings, and usually then getting your permit to start grading is a big day. Opening and then starting your model is a big day. Paving and getting the permits to start your houses. It's all like there's these big moments that like everything hinges on, and so it's quite dramatic. I tell people sometimes like I feel like I'm skydiving every day.
Well, I mean, it occurred, and not to get too sentimental or maudlin about it, but I mean, it it occurs that you drive through a community that didn't exist,
Yeah.
and you see families there. You see, kids playing, or in the 55 plus communities, you see, pickleball and all of
Yep.
these types of things. And you're like, well, you the company PulteGroup is such an integral part of creating
Yep.
those. Those family memories. They might not associate, they might not connect those dots, but you can, and it's pretty cool.
That's what we're picturing. What you just described is what we're picturing the whole way.
Right.
Like when we start,
the end result.
we're picturing the moment. Again, the landscaping that's there, we planned it. There was on it, the pond that you're playing, frisbee next to with the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all in our engineering plans and our construction drawings. Like we planned that, so we're planning those moments. And so to your point, when you see it start coming to life, it's the coolest feeling. And then when you see it, people start living there, and those memories become real. It's the coolest feeling.
So how many projects do you have in Middle Tennessee? I'll say.
We've got what we call 18 stores. So stores are a series of homes. So we've got 18 series of homes selling in about a dozen communities, including those 2 Del Webbs I talked about. And we're building about 500 homes a year here.
I want to talk about those Del Webbs because I'm fascinated with the growth of that model, and I'm getting close to it. So I'm excited about the possibility of that. But aside from the Del Webb communities, how quickly are you seeing interest? I guess I'm asking this in a certain way, but would you still consider the Nashville market to be hot?
In
terms of new home sales, in
plus,
terms of influx of people coming in terms of
and generally speaking, it's a little slower now than it's been. The country is.
You're dealing with so many. You're dealing with so many different things at once, right?
But the demand. So we'll tell you the demand feels the same. It feels like there's more people looking for houses here than there is supply.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, buyer behavior has slowed down a little bit, but the demand still feels very strong. And for our Del Webbs, it definitely feels. We get hundreds of leads a month. We get a lot of walk-in traffic. It's the busiest part of our business still. So, and that buyer group, a lot of times people make decisions based on the stage of their life, right? That buyer group, it's like, well, I'm retiring, or I'm moving close to my grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm ready for this lifestyle. It doesn't really matter as much what's going on in the world. It's kind of what's going on in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it feels, we're looking for more opportunities for those type of communities.
I want to, generally speaking, when you have, and I don't know what the verbiage is, would you call it a project, would a community, these individual places, are there common challenges, or are they typically unique to the site and unique to the municipality, or do you notice things that go from community to community that you're like, well, we know that this is going to be a typical hurdle that we have to check specifically in Middle Tennessee, like whether it's flooding, you mentioned flooding, or those types of things.
So that again, that is what's complicated. What makes our business more complicated here is all of the variables, to your point. So it's hilly, it's rock.
Right.
There's areas that are more prone to flooding than others. And so definitely from that standpoint, from an infrastructure, it's case by case, depending on your location. Again, the municipalities have different, things they're looking for. Some of the more mature ones, they might want you to have a lot of cladding on your house and certain architectural styles, side load garages. Whereas a municipality that's looking to grow more, they might say, I understand this is an affordable market, just bring the houses. And so those create some of the dynamics we navigate, and then scale. It's easier to develop a loop of homes, 20 home sites as a kind of infill somewhere than it is a Del Webb master plan with 1,200 homes. It's completely different.
Is that how big they get?
Yeah.
1,200?
Oh, they get bigger than that. That's how big. We've got one that size here, but there's Del Webbs with thousands of homes.
Wow.
Like 5,000 homes.
All right, so that leads us right into the Del. What was the genesis? You mentioned that Pulte kind of y'all were on the front end of this, right?
Correct.
You kind of developed the concept
Yep.
of, adult living. I guess you refer to it as active adult
Active
living.
adult, yeah.
For those who aren't familiar with the idea, how did it come about?
So Del Webb was a man that was I think he actually started his career building casinos in Vegas as a contractor, and then he got into home building. I think he was a part owner of the Yankees at one time. He had an idea, in the '50s to create a community that was it was for retirees in the Sun Belt, where they could have this kind of facilitated resort like living on their pension, basically. So it was meant to be kind of affordable, and the amenities have changed over time, but typically it's a fitness center, pools. At the time it was probably tennis. Now pickleball's more in demand, bocce, whatever the trends are. And so that there's stories about the first opening of this community, which is Sun City. It's in Phoenix. That was where the first one was. There were hundreds of people that showed up to the grand opening, waiting to buy a house like that. So from the beginning, the idea.
And if
was a
I'm not
great
mistaken,
idea.
there's YouTube videos about the original. If I'm not mistaken, I recall I might be wrong, but
maybe photos from it, or you're saying like maybe history.
historical
accounts.
documenting the concepts
Yep.
and the idea and how attractive it was. And I'm sure at the time there were people that were like, "This isn't going to work." I mean, people don't. Want to live.
Probably. But it's now, like I said, it's spread. There's Del Webb's or there's active adult all over the country now, and even in northern latitudes that wasn't the original thought, but there's people that want to age in place and still want that lifestyle. So Pulte and Del Webb merged 25 years ago or 20 years ago. So that's how it became part of our portfolio at PulteGroup. So and we're kind of the new stewards of that brand.
Does that present its own set of challenges when you're building a Del Webb community as opposed to any of your other brands?
You have to have a team that knows how to do it all, and that is uncommon. A lot of home builders, they're like, this is what we do, and it's a certain segmentation, and then they just kind of take it around and look for the opportunity. And like I said, I have to have a team that knows how to plan a Del Webb and plan a smaller infill project that might be for a affordable or a first move up buyer. And so, but fortunately, you find people that kind of love it as much as you do. I mean, I love what we do, and it's like I said, all those reasons. Like when you're starting in the beginning, imagining creating a community where people are living their best moments. It's it's like a calling almost. And so when you find people that share that passion, they like the fact that it's probably a little bit harder to do it that way.
Well, and when 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and you know better than I do, Jason, so tell me if I'm wrong, but when you had a planned community, you probably had, 3 homes to choose from.
Yeah.
The variety of the home styles that y'all present, at least I was looking at this last night, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But you want the general community to have a feel, to have
Some continuity.
That's a great word, continuity to it. Just talk about that balance, because everybody wants their house to feel like their house.
Yeah.
At the same time, we want to know what we're getting when the house down the way starts construction.
Yeah, and that's it's a good topic. So custom versus production, right? So we're a production home builder, which means that we can build at scale, essentially, right? And our business is scaled. And we have shared floor plans. Like we'll sell a floor plan here that they sell in Atlanta or Charlotte or in North Carolina somewhere. Typically, it's regionally specific. Like we don't necessarily have the same plans as like the Southwest, just because there's different the geographic differences can be topography or indoor-outdoor living or something that might be a variable. And so being able to build at scale does reduce cost. It costs more money to do a one-off, so custom homes tend to be more expensive. But then and again, depending on the location and the segmentation that you're going after, people don't want to feel like they live in a cookie cutter house. Like that's kind of the knock on production. So there's a balance of to your point of providing similar floor plans, but having enough elevation. So what we call elevation. So the way your home looks from the outside, some variability there, along with, cladding choices. So siding color choices or brick color choices that it'll kind of allow a community to feel like it's not the same house printed over and over again. But we're still doing it in a way that we're bringing down the cost because we're kind of narrowing the band a little bit, if that makes sense. So normally, again, that a lot of times that might be intentional, like in a Del Webb, it's intentional because a lot of times we're our own design criteria. Sometimes it's imposed if you're buying a community in a master plan that already has set that for you. You cater to it. A lot of times the move up buyers prefer that variability more so than a first time buyer who might just be like, I just want to be able to afford a home. And so depending on which brand we're operating, we may have more or less customization. And that goes for the way a house looks. That might go for the architectural options we provide too. We have ways of, adding baths or bedrooms or, sunrooms or other features that might, change dirty pantries that within the house, or, prep kitchens, you call them, based on how you want your house generally to live as well.
So what is your relationship? And I know you're dealing with, a variety of municipalities. You're all over. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Middle Tennessee, you're in a footprint in Middle Tennessee. Are you looking to expand throughout the other portions of Tennessee? Or are you focused right?
We have the opportunity to. We like to, as divisions go, we try to, whatever we can cover in a couple mile drive time radius is generally, how our company thinks of it. So we're definitely, looking within a couple of hours here in all directions of what the opportunities are. A lot of times what dictates that is the growth in those locations, because, for our management team to guarantee the quality and the standards that we have, we got to be there. So if we're going to stretch ourselves, we need to make sure there's enough that that's viable to build in those locations.
So generally the economy, and I'm not, in my regular life, we talk politics and we talk, market impact of this thing or that thing. But, it occurs to me that the idea of quote unquote tariffs would be a subject that perhaps has come up in your industry, right?
Yeah,
it's clearly that's going to impact you.
Yep.
Has it impacted you, or I guess you would have to look 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road. You're always looking forward, right?
That's the great question, I think, in America right now with probably every industry. It's possible that it can. It hasn't shown up a lot, it hasn't shown up yet essentially, but it's playing out in the supply chains.
And yours is not a political calculation. Yours is just a basic, like a reality of, if our cost structure changes, then we naturally have to change our cost structure.
Well, and if you think of everything that goes into a home, right?
I mean, that's
lumber from everywhere.
Contemplating it is almost
cement.
difficult.
There's a lot of commoditized materials that go into a home, and then there's very specific things like appliances that, and so, and if anything along the supply chain of any of those is impacted, it's definitely something that the material provider or or us as a company have to navigate. So.
But back to the municipal relationships. I mean, have you had a positive experience, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Municipalities. I mean, they love seeing you guys come in. I mean, because that's more people in the community. That's more families coming into the communities. That's more businesses opening in the community. I mean, it's just such a cascade effect.
It is, and what I love about where I work, and this is a pitch on my company since I have the opportunity. Pulte is obsessed with happy employees and obsessed with happy home buyers, customers. We do the NPS, so the Net Promoter Score ranking. Like we survey that within ourselves to make sure that we're aligned with other world-class businesses in terms of what our Net Promoter Score is. We survey our employees. We're a Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 best places to great places to work. We've been that year after year, which is what our employees saying, this is a great place to work. And then we survey our home buyers from the point of sale through the construction of their home to a year later. How do you
Nice.
how do you enjoy living in your home? Are you happy in your home a year afterwards? And so and then we also have something called PCS. It's Pulte Construction Standards. That has become that's always been a standard above code for years. And in some markets they adopt it as code because it's so good. So we know we're building good homes, great homes. We know that we have buyers that are happy, and we have one of the best warranties in the business. And so when you're dealing with us, you're dealing with somebody who's going to do it right. And that's all what we say to a municipality when we're coming in to do a new project is, one, we're 75 years old, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
And two, we're going to do it right. So,
you don't become the third largest home builder
Yeah.
for nothing, right? I mean, you're doing something correct.
Yeah.
And what, roughly 6,000 employees?
Yeah.
Nationwide, is that about right?
Over 30,000 homes a year.
30,000 homes a year? How do you keep up with them all? Come on.
Well, 32 divisions. Yeah.
What's next for Middle Tennessee? Do you have anything on the horizon? I know you've got a lot of projects going on right now.
We just launched like 12 new communities over the last year, so teams catching their breath a little bit.
Right.
We've got a few more opening in the next couple of quarters. We're looking at replenishing the business we have, and we're always looking for opportunities. And like I said, we're in a lot of different spaces, so we're always in the process of buying more land and designing new communities. And when inevitably in a community that's selling now closes out, you gotta backfill it. So
what's the easiest way for those watching us? What's the easiest way if we've got folks that are thinking about buying? I mean, what's a good way for them to kind of look at what you guys are offering?
It's really easy to find us because we make it that way.
Right, yeah.
So generally speaking, if you're just looking for new homes in the market, new homes in Nashville, you'll see us.
Right.
But Pulte, if you put in Pulte or Pulte.com into your web browser, you'll find our different brands. We tend to show them. So like if you go to Pulte.com, for example, Nashville, our Del Webb communities are on there, our Centex communities are on there. But any of those brands, Centex Nashville, Pulte Nashville, Del Webb, John Wheeland, whatever category you're looking for.
You haven't gotten into those in the Del Webb communities. Have you experienced any of those tennis, pickleball fights? Fights is a strong word. Discussions.
So, yeah, no, it's funny. We actually
They're very passionate people on both sides of that.
Pickleball has gotten so popular that in a new web, at least and it depends on the scale and location, but like here, for example, we're only doing pickleball.
No tennis anymore?
We're leaving a space for tennis. If someday
The community
wants it, and then they can kind of pay for it themselves essentially.
Right.
But pickleball is the dominating sport between the two, and so that's what we kind of dedicate the initial amenity to.
Well, it's a far superior sport.
So I guess you could say pickleball won already.
Already,
and
it's not been
which
very
is probably
long.
making some tennis players mad.
Not
but,
been-
yeah.
Right, sure. Oh, thank you so much for this discussion. It's been incredibly informative. If there's anything, am I leaving anything on the table? I mean, I love that you guys are here. I love what you do for our community.
Yeah, going back to I think probably the basis of the entire show. Our company loves being in Nashville. We're based in Atlanta, so my boss's boss is only a few hours away. They're proud of what we do here. They're proud of being here, and continuing to invest in this market and see Nashville as a great place long term to do business. And so it's great to be able to be a part of that.
Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the time.
There's Jason Demuth with PulteGroup, and this has been Nashville Forward, a community affairs program brought to you by Cumulus Media. Thank you so much for joining us. Give us the old like, subscribe, thumbs up, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and buy a Pulte home.
Yeah.
Thank
Please.
you.
Thanks.